If you are suddenly more exhausted than you used to be, and sleep is worse, and rest is no longer as restorative, then you might have been told it's the hormones. And yeah, hormones are real, but for perimenopause, that explanation is incomplete. Let me first explain it, and then I will offer a few concrete next steps that you can consider. But first, we need to understand what is happening. Let's place the hormones in their proper context. Okay, yes, estrogen changes, progesterone changes, yes, the cycles become irregular, that is true. But these hormones do not operate in isolation. They interact with, they are influenced by your stress load and your sleep history and your nervous system baseline. The hormones do also not create a sudden lack of strength per se. What they do is they reduce your resilience. So when estrogen level changes, the stress sensitivity increases. And that means what was manageable before now can become overwhelming. Not because you have become so weak, but because the threshold for stress tolerance changed. And that is especially the case if you are highly adaptive. That means if you can adapt well, especially high-functioning people have had decades of adaptation and also very often compensation. High output, not enough rest chronically, and an enormous level of responsibility. And that requires a lot of adaptation to maintain all the time. And that adaptation has a cost. So when that baseline has been high for many years, and that can have been even unnoticed, right? It was the normal. Once that hormonal buffer now drops, then that adaptive load feels too heavy. And then this can be experienced in the form of a crash. And that is not the same as hormonal chaos. So you were not unstable, you were in a way too stable without noticing it. You stabilized all the time. That was an effort that went on and on and on constantly. You were so highly adaptive that you adapted too well for it to be sustainable for longer than 20, 30, 40 years. Especially if you're used to functioning like this, always spot on, always sharp, then that can cause worry, of course, if it's not functioning like this anymore all of a sudden. If that happened to you, then you can experience, for example, exhaustion or difficulties recovering from activities or from interactions, or you can have brain fog or sleep disruption. Or even after resting, you don't feel well rested. And it can feel as if things are out of control. Experiencing these symptoms means that now your materials get distributed differently. It's happening mostly on the level of the command center, so to say. So here's what you should pay attention to, knowing that hormones do not determine the entire experience. It's wise to monitor the environment in which these hormones live, which is you. In case your balance feels off, then document your symptoms, all of your symptoms, without minimizing them. Secondly, notice what consistently drains you. Treat that like a scientist. You're only making the observation. You're not yet making a judgment or solving anything. You just notice and write it down. Third, stop the reflex to push through, if you have that reflex. Many people have that reflex. If there's an obstacle, I will push through. That strategy has a half-life of about 15 to 20 years. And also consider medical testing, not as the one final answer, but also as gathering information. To conclude, perimenopause is not just a hormone shift. And just take hormones or the opposite, just regulate, are both approaches that are likely insufficient. It is a situation within a complex environment. You are that complex environment, and you are also living in a complex environment. If your system was under constant high adaptation, which is quite likely, then now you are required to switch to a different mode of functioning. In earlier years, we could run solely on endurance, but starting this phase in life, it will no longer be endurance. Instead, it is now efficiency. And that is a good thing. And you are needed to cooperate, to help your system make that switch. Then you can absolutely improve your well-being and how perimenopause plays out for you.